St. Joseph Radio Presents is really cool today. Stephen?
Hey, we're going to be talking about this fantastic book, Pray, Think, and Act, by our good father, Father Augustine Wetta here.
Today! Get ready for the biggest monster monk rally ever. I don't know what to...
And we may deviate a little bit from the plan.
It'll be total chaos.
Stay tuned.
Welcome to the St. Joseph Radio Presents live program, broadcasting to you from the Rome of the West, St. Louis, Missouri. The program that for over 30 years has brought you eloquent speakers from across the globe to help explain, clarify, and evangelize the Catholic faith. Our program covers a variety of topics relating to current issues and occurrences in our daily lives. Now, with the aid of technology, we are able to bring the gospel message to the four corners of the world, where Christ himself did say, "Those who have ears ought to hear." It is our hope at St. Joseph Radio that through these programs we can help evangelize the world and change one soul at a time. Now, here is your host to introduce today's guest and topic.
Well, thank you, Matt. I am your host today, Peter Karutz. We are live in studio with Father Augustine Wetta.
By the aid of technology.
Well, and by the aid of your car, too. I mean, you're here real and live in person.
With the aid of science.
Yeah.
And then we're now able to bring to the four corners of the globe.
The wide, is this the wide world of sport type of thing?
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah. That's what I have to look that up during the break.
Monks.
It says. But we have Father is a monk, as you can see, very quiet, very demure, never has anything. The first rule of the order is silence.
Don't.
Silence.
Oh, yeah, right, that too.
And we are also here with Stephen McCane. Stephen is a professor at Lindenwood and other places as well. He teaches Chinese business and culture, and he's, I would say, an expert in the Desert Fathers, which, very coincidentally, Father Augustine has written a book about the Desert Fathers. And his book is called, and as our program is called, Pray, Think, Act. Pray, Think,
Not to be confused
act.
with Eat, Pray, Love.
Right, or...
Which I do not recommend.
Okay, well, I have one that I'll recommend. It's called Eat,
Fast,
Feast.
Yeah, I've heard of it. I haven't
good...
read it yet, but I will.
I did, and I threw it away, and because it wasn't what I expected, I picked it back up, and it became a very, very good thing.
Can I make a shout-out, by the way? I met this guy, John C. Wright, about last week. He's a huge, big-time Catholic sci-fi author.
Really? Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
He wrote a book called Awake in the Nightland, which I'm loving right now.
Good stuff.
But they have a podcast called Superversive that's all these Catholic fantasy and sci-fi writers come on there, and
Wow.
I was on there last week, I guess, or 2 weeks ago. Anyway, they're really cool guys. But the host, one is a fundamentalist, just an evangelical sci-fi writer. There's a Catholic, and this guy they had on the show.
Wow.
And he was really cool. So shout out to John C. Wright. Go buy his book.
There we are.
Awake in the Nightland.
And what about yours, The Eighth Arrow? Would you say that's sci-fi, or is that fantasy?
That's fantasy.
That's fantasy.
Although I prefer the term mythopoeia, which is what J.R.R. Tolkien called his stuff. He said it wasn't really a fantasy. He was reworking ancient myths. And so that's what I'm doing. It's a mixture of Homer and Dante, sort of.
Well, I gave a bad promotion for your book. I said it was really spot on for teenagers and young adults.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, is it?
Though the head of the Library of Congress told me it was better than Tennyson.
Holy smokes.
Yeah, I asked if I could quote him on that, and he said yes. So it's on my website and everything. I put it. He only said, he told a friend of mine who is a book, he's a book reviewer for the Washington Post. Won the Pulitzer Prize. His name is Michael Dearda. So shout out to Michael Dearda as well. Thank you for recommending my book.
Well, here is
Or at
Father,
least reading it.
and here's Father's book. But let's give a little background on why we're writing it, what it has to do with. But wait, before we do that, I'm going to be in trouble here.
Money and power. That's what it's all about.
And prayer, because we're supposed to start with prayer. And
oh, right, yeah.
And you
I always forget.
And it's I know it's Saturday, your day off, but
Could you make me work on my day off?
Would you please? I'll pay you
right.
overtime.
Okay, I'll throw in an indulgence or two for free. Full half price.
Which reminds me, if you went to Mass last Saturday, today, I think it's today or tomorrow's last day to go to confession and get that plenary indulgence.
Ooh.
With everything else.
Get out of hell free card.
Yeah, do it. Give me a couple here, would you? You have a prayer
sure.
for us?
In the name of, I'm gonna. Since school has started again, I'm gonna use the prayer that my freshman. Another shout out to Chance Petrie, who invented this prayer before class 2 years ago. But I've been saying it all the time. In the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. Amen. Lord, make us holy and smart, but mostly make us holy, because who cares if you're smart if you're a jerk? Amen.
Amen. Father, Son, Holy Spirit.
Amen. Yep.
Very pithy, very pithy. So
out of the mouths of babes.
So you probably know a lot about the book you wrote, Stephen.
I do, but I don't know much about the Desert Fathers, to be honest, or probably not as much as Stephen does.
Tell me, Stephen, where's the connection between eat, pray, act?
What's really interesting?
Pray, think, love. Pray, think, act. Not eat, pray, act.
Father has it backwards. I always act, and I think about how everything went wrong, and then I pray.
And then I pray for forgiveness. You're right. The backwards, it makes for pretty interesting.
That's my life.
Yeah, act, think, pray. Yeah, that's right. That's mine too. Well, I'm fond of saying that there are three kinds of men who join a monastery: those who become monks because it fits their character, and those who become monks because it tames their character. And I tend to think of myself as the latter. Really, I write all these books because, isn't there something like, there's a saying, those who can't teach, those who can't teach write books about it.
Ooh, I didn't know that. I can't do anything.
I guess that's my next step.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, well, you can teach, so you're home free.
So, Stephen, tell me, who are just so people know this, who are the Desert Fathers? How come we haven't heard much about them? And when did we discover them as opposed to when did they live?
It's so interesting that when Constantine made Christianity popular, people went into the desert.
Yeah.
And out of all that time, all that silence, all this wisdom came out, but it's not just a mystery, but it's hidden. People are not that when you typically talk to a Catholic, I study the Desert Fathers. The Desert who?
Right.
They've never heard those two words together, or the Desert Mothers as well.
There are a few mothers too.
Yes.
Amma Sarah and Amma. Well, I can't name. Yeah, but sorry, keep going.
No.
This is 4th century, you're saying?
It starts in the 4th century, and St. Augustine is a result of it. He was a Desert Father, but he's like the 4th or 5th generation, and they built up a lot of steam. And then what God did is there's some interesting stories where he has robbers come in and tear everything apart, and then from memory they have to put together all their words, which they knew. I don't know if you know that story, Father.
No,
and
it's
so
not
that's
the
when
story.
they.
So what happened?
So they wrote down what everybody had said before they forgot everything, and that's where we get our first writing of the Desert Fathers.
Which is?
I can't even pronounce it. What do you pronounce?
The Apathigmata Patrum. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay. It is hard to pronounce. I'm not even sure what it means. Apo means against or toward. Apathigmata. I don't know.
Golly. How many years did it take for you to learn that word?
Just lots of practice pronouncing it. I haven't learned it apparently because I don't know what it means.
But Father, you're using this book. It's a lot thinner than the books I've seen Stephen read and share with us. And you've done yours in a couple of different parts, right?
Right. The thing is, I've been having to make some big decisions myself lately, And as the newly appointed vocation director for St. Louis Abbey, I'm trying to help young folk make up their minds, which seemed to me like the second greatest challenge besides humility. So the Desert Fathers just seemed like a natural place to turn because as their theology wasn't very deep, but boy, when they decided to do something, they really did it. And they didn't seem to have, I was going to say they didn't see, some of them had figured out how to make decisions the right way. And so I did a lot of reading in the Desert Fathers, but I also did a lot of reading in like just sort of modern psychology and things like that. So I have already forgotten your question.
Well, years ago, you used to say you're going to write a book on how to make a decision.
Oh, did I? But I couldn't decide how?
But apparently you did. I think
good
this
for
is.
me.
I think this is what you used.
Well, I know I was giving a retreat once, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm thinking about writing this book about decision making." And everybody was like, "Oh, that's really cool." I was giving a retreat, and I was like, "But how to organize it? That's the tricky part." Like I thought maybe another 12 steps, but then 3 steps, and then they all started laughing, and I was like, "What?" And they're like, "Well, you can't make up your mind how to write a book on decision making." So. Anyway, but you can't go wrong with 3, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I did.
Yeah.
I mean, but it also just sort of seemed to speak itself, really. It makes sense to me that you would pray about something first, then think about it, then act. And I hadn't actually thought about my mistakes being in the wrong, making that in the exact wrong order, but you're right. Every mistake I made, all the really big ones and most of the small ones too, I act first. Then I think, oh, that wasn't such a great idea. And then I go, oh, please forgive me, God, for that one.
But don't we all do that, really? And to some extent, we are confronted in the moment with something, and we need to act, right?
Yeah, true enough. And sometimes, and that's part of the book, too, is that sometimes you don't have time to make a decision. You just have to act but that's why you prepare yourself by setting up your environment so that's A, conducive to good decisions, and B, so that you make the decisions ahead of time, really, most of the time. I teach sexual ethics to junior high school boys, and it's a little bit crude, but I always say to them, at some point I say, look, I don't care what you do. It's no skin off my nose either way, but just make the decision now and not in the backseat of the car. Okay, because by the time you get there, it's going to be really hard to make a good decision. You're not even going to be thinking straight. So decide now what you're going to do when the time comes.
And we do that.
Stick with that.
We do that in all the very important parts of our life if we think about it, right? I played basketball in high school. I was good enough to be a starter, but I was the worst guy who was a starter.
Really?
And I was. But what do? We ran. We did wind sprints.
Right.
We shot lots of free throws. We shot lots of balls. And I remember being in a game one day, and I was not allowed to shoot from the outside because I was the tallest guy, and I was supposed to a small school, and I was supposed to be under the basket. And I remember seeing a great opportunity. I posted up. I took a shot from what would have been 3-point, and all I heard was my coach yell, "No!" as it went through the hoop.
Right? Good for you.
Yeah.
Good for you.
But the point is, I was not really good at the distance shots.
But you had done it enough times that when it came, rubber hit.
Right. I had done it. I was at the gym, and I was practicing that shot over and over and over and over. But I was not good at it.
You know, this didn't make it into the book, but in one of these one of these psychology books I was reading, they talked about something called the luck of the informed mind. That like people get lucky and they say, "Oh, that was a lucky shot," but they didn't use this example in the book I was reading. But I got to think about it later. I don't know anything about basketball, but I love watching highlights of Michael Jordan on the court because it's like ballet. The guy just flies through and around his opponents. At one point, he does this leap off of the far end of the court, grabs the ball in the middle there, and chunks it backwards over his shoulder, and it goes right in the hoop. And afterwards, it's an incredible shot. It's like a famous clip of him doing his thing. He said, well, that was a lucky shot. Yes, it was a lucky shot. But no one knows a basketball court like Michael Jordan. I mean, like, it was the luck of the informed mind, right?
Yeah.
And so you end up, like, a lot of great decisions. Like, well, I'm just thinking about, like, my first book, the Eighth Arrow, I got an agent for it before I got published, obviously. And it was just a lucky draw. Like, he happened to be at the right place at the right. I was at this writers' conference, and I happened to be standing behind him in line. I said, "Oh, you do the," and we got to talking, and so he said, "Send it to me." But the thing is, I had the manuscript ready to go when I met him, so it was lucky that I met this agent. But I was prepared ahead of time, and I think, well, to bring it back to Pray, Think, Act, I think that's what happens when we talk about ethical or spiritual or great movements in our lives. You set up the situation so that when the luck comes, you're ready for it.
Right. This is St. Joseph Radio Presents, coming to you live from St. Louis, Missouri. I'm your host, Peter Karutz. We're live in studio with Father Augustine Wetta, the author of, I'll get it right, Pray, Think, Act. We're also here with Stephen McCane, a professor of Chinese business and culture, but an aficionado of the Desert Fathers.
You know, what's really interesting is when you go to a different language and the word fate has to be translated. When you go to Chinese, and yuan fen would be the word for fate.
Say it again?
But it's totally different meaning. Yuan fen includes God. You know, the early way of China was monotheistic. So everything that happens, God's involved.
Yeah.
And it's
more like providence or something?
Well, it's just God's involved in the connecting you with that particular individual that helped you out.
Yeah, I mean, I say luck, but
and
there is luck.
In Western, we say luck because fate. The word fate is sterile. It's not a word where God is really involved. We don't use fate and God together, but yet we say that's fate that you met this person. But if you would say yuan fen, that would mean that was God put the two together, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work out. Now he's watching the two of you.
Yeah. I mean, okay, now I'm thinking. Keep talking. I'm thinking about something.
I had a very unusual driver's ed instructor in high school, Brother Eugene Traversa, bald as a cue ball, and he would take us out onto these country roads in the middle of the winter, and he would purposely cause us to lose control.
Ooh.
And we needed to learn how to gain control again. And he says, this is the best way to learn, because someday you will be in a tough. Right. I was with a colleague of mine. I was working, and we're going down in Chicago on an icy road, and a truck lost control in front of us. We were going to hit head on, and without even thinking, I slid, I recompensated, and I went right around him. And this guy's looking with eyeballs freaking out of his head. But Brother Eugene Traversa.
The luck of the informed mind there, baby.
The luck of the informed mind.
Wow.
But think about all of these important things that we have to do. We need to prepare. Father, you told me this once. I told you, we weren't on the radio, but I told you I was getting kind of dry in my prayers. And I'm saying the rosary every day, but, heart wasn't in it. I was forgetting it. I was drifting. And I said, I'm going to take a week or two off from praying. And you look at me in the eye and he says, no, just do it. Just do it. Do it.
It's about being there. It's not about success or technique. It's just about showing up.
So did I distract you enough? You got the thought back?
Oh, no. In fact, I got more distracted because I was thinking about, okay, this has absolutely nothing, it's not even spiritual, but my family was on a trip to Memphis, Tennessee, and we were coming back from coming back from Memphis to see my grandmother. It was winter. It was after Christmas. And this huge snowstorm hit, and we got run off the road by this truck, and we slid all the way off the ramp and into this parking lot. When we got to the hotel, Elvis was standing getting into the elevator. Yeah, and I couldn't believe it. And then we checked in, and as the rest of the family was getting off of the elevator, they got into the room, and I looked in the hall, and there was Elvis again getting onto the elevator. And I'm making a long story really short here, but we ended up going to dinner at the place, and Elvis was at the bar. And then I look around, Elvis is having dinner with Elvis, and Elvis is actually singing. It was the Liverpool Elvis impersonator convention was also stranded at the same hotel that we were. So there you have it.
There you go. You could do that
mystical experience
100 times and never hit it again.
No.
Now the Chinese talk about mystical.
You were talking about fate, and it's interesting because we have the Catholics have this odd sort of hybrid understanding of providence. You know, on the one hand, yes, God is behind everything. That prevenient grace, they call it, like everything is by the finger of God. But on the other hand, there is like true randomness in the universe, and we do have a choice. It's not we don't believe in predestination the way John Calvin did.
Double.
And so the decisions are you know, I have this Muslim friend who said, well, the reason we make such great fighters is because we believe if it's our time, God will have us killed, and if it's not, God will rescue us. So, inshallah, you know, whatever God wants. But Catholics I don't think we think about it that way. God doesn't sort of micromanage. On the other hand, he does count every hair on your head. So he doesn't micromanage, but he does micro love or something. I don't know. I was listening. I just recently read an essay by Ronald Knox, and he said, if your enemies tell you that you're holding contrary opinions, you're almost assuredly Orthodox Catholic. Because God is both, Jesus is both God and man. Trinity is both three in one. God is both. We have free will, but we are predestined. It's all very complicated. Probably too complicated for me, which is why I love the Desert Fathers.
But it's
really
sort of
simple.
like a book too, Stephen. I mean, if you've read a book, the totality of the book is now, right? If I'm reading a book for the first time, I'm reading page to page, line to line. Couldn't wait to figure out what happens. But if I have read the book or written it, all of it is in me right now, just as God is.
Yeah, that's a good point.
God is present in all things right now. All things that are going to happen. It is all right now.
Well, I know when it comes to making decisions that a lot of people, like especially of a vocation, that there's this sort of unspoken sense that like God has a secret calling for me, and if I don't figure it out, like I'm going to be really out of luck. But I don't think God works that way either. Yeah.
Well, when we have this prayer given us at the very end of the Lord's Prayer, lead us not into temptations. So the Desert Father, St. Isaac Syrian, would say to that is there's two types of temptations. One's of the body, the flesh, and one's of the soul. So that the lead us not into temptation is really the protection of our soul. He's going to throw stuff at us in the flesh, or let the demons come at us in the flesh for us to improve our virtues.
Yeah.
Okay,
And in Spanish, it's more of a do not allow. I think the verb is dejas, right? So it's a little bit.
Didn't the Pope just recently write something about this?
He's suggesting he wants to change it a little bit, and I haven't read on what he wants to do. But I imagine the Spanish is closer to the Latin, and maybe closer to that too.
So you know those fault lines we have in our flesh, we're constantly being tested to improve that. So if God wants you to have more patience as a virtue, he's going to put you in impatient situations. It doesn't matter what line in Deerberg you get into, or Schnucks there, I mentioned, or Aldi's, wherever you go. You're going to get in the wrong line because he wants you to be more patient. And you just have to laugh at him, and it's like a God joke. It's like, I get it. You're testing me. All right. Give me a break, Lord.
Exercising,
Yes.
right? We exercise our bodies. We practice our shots. But if we want to be more patient, we get impatient circumstances. If we want to be courageous, we get fearful circumstances. If we want to be decisive, we get just situations where we are called to do it.
The Pope wanted to change it to "Do not let us be abandoned to temptation."
Allow, right? Yeah. Don't let us. Yeah. So I'm curious. Well, talking about that, I'm curious to know what it says in Latin.
I'm
Greek.
curious to know what it is in Greek.
Yeah.
I'll look it up.
Yeah. Father's got the whole knowledge of the universe here on his
Laptop.
on his laptop.
And
Kai me aisenakes and do not lead. It's
lead.
the aorist subjunctive of aisphero, to carry toward something. Hema, temptation. Ice pirate to temptation. So do not lead us into temptation, really is the literal meaning of the Greek. Oh, that's interesting.
Well, I
Well,
probably
the Pope wasn't necessarily speaking infallibly.
right. Often,
He can make mistakes.
yeah. Everybody's well, and you know what? I remember the first volume of the 2-volume set on the Gospel of John that Pope Benedict wrote, and right there in the foreword, he said, "Look, I'm a theologian. I'm just telling you what I think." We all have that opportunity.
I had a great teacher, a patristics professor in college named Tom Wynandy, who later got in a little bit of trouble for writing an angry letter to Pope Francis about something I can't remember. But I remember he was teaching me, he was tutoring me in patristics, and I had all the good guys on one side of the page in green, all the bad guys on the other side of the page in red, all the heretics. But I couldn't figure out where to put Origen, because Origen
He
was
repented.
he was really great, but he also had some problems. And he said, "What is that?" He said, "Are you doing what I think you're doing?" And he tore it up and threw it in the trash. He said, "They're all orthodox until they disobey. They're all good guys until they disobey. Until then, they're just progressive thinkers." So, and that made a lot of sense to me. There's no sin in having the wrong ideas, so long as you understand that your ideas are subject to a greater authority than yourself.
And the music is a greater authority than we are. So that just tells us that we have about 2 minutes of break coming up. This is your opportunity to go and tell a friend that we are talking about pray, think, act.
Hi, this is Matt Loggeman with St. Joseph Radio with a great gift idea. A St. Benedict bracelet, a trendy accessory for men, women, and children that not only looks good on everyone's wrist, but is actually armor for the spiritual battlefield. This unique bracelet is handmade in Europe and contains 10 medals within the braided cord in the adult size and 7 medals in the children's size. On the front of each beautiful medal is St. Benedict holding a cross in his right hand, the object of his devotion. On the back of each medal is a cross. Surrounding the back of the medal and cross are the letters VRSN MV SMQ LIVB, in Latin reference which translates, "Begone, Satan. Never tempt me with your vanities. What you offer me is evil. Drink the poison yourself." And finally, located at the top is the word Pax, which means peace. All bracelets come packaged with an informational card and the St. Benedict blessing, which your local priest can administer. This gift is for everyone you love and care about, including yourself. Available from St. Joseph Radio. Check the website at www.saintjosephradio.net.
St. Joseph Catholic Radio is proud to announce the launch of SJEN TV, the St. Joseph Evangelization Network. SJEN TV is a premier online Catholic broadcasting network providing quality Catholic programming 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We have programming such as live studio interviews, St. Joe's Java speaker presentations, current Catholic issues, and the Pro-Life series. We're featuring the many talented speakers out of Orange County, California, and this Archdiocese of St. Louis, Missouri. today, including Professor John Gresham, Father James Mason, Karen Nokemper, Rick Hollerick, Bill Federer, and many more. To review the program list, go to SJEN.TV or on Roku, SJEN TV. All this programming is free, and we are welcoming sponsorship of new programs. Find out more at SJEN.TV.
I like that.
And we're back. I'm your host, Peter Karutz. This is St. Joseph Radio Presents, coming to you live from St. Louis, Missouri, the Rome of the West. We're with Father Augustine Wetta and Stephen McCane. Father is a father and Stephen is a professor. And we're talking about pray, think, act. But before we act, I need to tell you about a few things. First off, the Catholic Woman of the Year is coming up. The nominees are in.
And Mary wins it every time.
Mary wins it every time. That's right. Well, there is one Mary in the group. Two Marys and a Marie. But anyway, and it was Mary's birthday yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. So there we are. But it's September 24th. If you would like to have tickets to come and support some of these fine women, please call us at 636-447-6000. I got two more, maybe. On the 17th of September, there's a double feature event with Jason Everett. Look, if you don't know Jason Everett, you should. It's going to be between 3 and 5, followed by Mass and dinner.
Where?
It's Gender and Theology at Immaculate Conception, Dardenne.
Oh, man, I got to write this down. I'm teaching this class.
It's the whole day, I guess. $25 for the whole day. It starts
What day?
It's the 17th of September. It starts at 3, then it goes for a while, and then there's Mass at 5, and then there's dinner, and it's Gender and Theology of the Body. Holy smokes.
Oh, boy.
And with Jason Everett. I got a great Jason Everett story. Someday we'll have to tell you. And we have...
Tell us now, just for fun.
I can't. I got to get through this. Awake, Not Woke. This is September...
Oh, that's Deacon Harold Burke Withers. I know him.
Severs. Burke Severs. 25th and 26th. Again, at Immaculate Conception in Dardenne. It's the 25th and 26th. The event will include, there's, of course, introductory prayer. There's Success to Significance. That's with Kevin Bailey. I don't know. The Eucharist. How Islam Led Me Back to Christ. There's prayer and music. There's a lot of stuff going on here. Again, if you want to know more about it, call us at 636-447-6000.
Is this in Dardenne?
Immaculate Conception in Dardenne. And last announcement, we are winding up the Sock Angel campaign. Look, the poor always need socks. It's 1,000 degrees outside these days, but in the winter they'll need them, and we need them desperately. There's a few parishes that are still carrying on. Incarnate Word, Holy Infant, or call us here and we'll help you out. So you don't want me to talk to you about Jason Everett.
I want to hear your story. This is fun.
Jason Everett.
Because I've got a story about Matt Fradd.
Oh, do you really?
Yeah, very good.
Yeah, well, it is what it is. A story is a story. But I was in Denver. The plane was delayed and canceled. And if you know Denver can always be delayed and canceled all the time. And we are packed in there like sardines.
Someone should cancel Denver.
Yeah, I know what you mean. So I am literally walking over people to try and figure out what the latest deal is on my flight. And now I'm walking over people again, and I see this young woman over there, and she has a shopping bag, and I see the box inside. It looks like it's from it's a religious store. It looks like the box from a holy water font that I buy all the time. So she must be Catholic. So I start talking to her.
You buy holy water fonts all the time?
I do. I give one to everyone who gets baptized at Incarnate Word.
Okay, I thought you misspoke, but you really do go around buying holy water fonts.
I do. I have a supply.
That's awesome.
Anyway, so I see it in there, and I start talking to her, and then I realize, think, act, and pray. And, right?
Whatever. Pray, think, act.
So I'm acting, and I'm talking. Literally, I'm realizing now I have been talking fairly intently to this young, beautiful woman. And the guy next to her clearly must be her husband because he's not thrilled about it.
Uh-oh.
And anyway, we talk about religious stuff. I figure they're Protestants. They're going to speak with young people and whatnot. Anyway, I figure, all right, I got to walk away because he looks grumpy. and I said, tell me your name again. And she says, Evelina. And and your husband, Chris. I said, or Jason, Everett. I said, wait a minute, you're Jason Everett? I said, stand up, come here, get a picture. I move everybody out of the way. He's about that big, I'm about that big.
Yeah.
And we want, and I realized it all hit me because he has a medal of Our Lady, and it all kind of clicked. And he starts sending books to my house.
And he was angry that you were hitting on his wife, huh?
I wasn't hitting on his wife. But it is what it is, right? It is what it is. But he's a great guy.
Okay, now I got to tell you my Matt Fradd story, which is...
Can you do it with an accent?
Oh, right, because he's Australian. He's Austrian. Right, yeah. Throw another shrimp at the Barbie. Okay. Well, I was on this radio show called Godsplaining, and then the guy who was on that show was on Matt Fradd's show, which is called Pints with Aquinas. And so as a result, I've been invited to be on Pints of Aquinas with Matt Fradd. So I guess I'll get to meet him in a couple of weeks. But I was telling one of the moms this, and she had called his office to get him to come speak at Priory at the school where I teach. Yeah. And she didn't get through to his office, but she got through. They put her through to him. He was driving down the road talking to her on the phone, and he passed this accident. He said, hold on. And he kept her on the line while he made sure everybody was all right, gave him a ride to a restaurant, bought him a meal. He said, I have to call. He had to keep calling her back. But apparently, Matt Fradd is a nice guy, because
I think he's a very nice guy.
I bet he doesn't even remember doing it. But why did I tell that story?
Because it's a Matt Fradd story.
Okay.
Yeah. But now I want to know the story about what we should be doing. We should be praying.
That's right.
So I'm a convert from being a Protestant. And one of the problems that Protestants have, or they don't all have it, but is this name it and claim it type of prayer, where you just say, Lord, heal this person. Thank you. Amen. Boom. And there isn't this depth of prayer, nor is there this sort of seeking silence in prayer. And so, I think it's in our Crack of Dawn, we have Bill, who was mentioning this morning. Every time we start something, it would be really intelligent if we prayed about it.
Yeah.
So we start our workday, and we got that yellow pad with 6 things we have to do. So we start number 1. We should pray about it. Yeah. Lord, help me with this. And then we get through number 1. We should pray before we start number 2.
Yeah.
And but we forget to do that. So we do like pray, think, act, and then it just becomes act.
Yeah.
And we get to the end of the day and go, oh, how did I act?
My niece always prays before she does number 2. She's all into that these days. But anyway, never mind.
Well, I remember, some things we do as Catholics are good because sometimes we don't know what to do. Right? You're in a crisis. How am I going to pray? Well, I have prayers.
I remember there's a story. In Galveston, there was a horrible car accident, and a school bus went off a bridge and hit another bridge and a bunch of oncoming cars. And the kids were all right except for one little girl who was in the back who was dying. And one of the kids grabbed her hand and said, "Can I pray with you?" And she said, "I don't know any prayers, or I can't think of anything." And so they said the Hail Mary together before she died. And I just remember it being in the newspaper, which was a secular paper, because that's literally what they did as she was dying. But I remember being really impressed with that because somebody had a memorized prayer. What do you say to someone at that moment? And if you're dying, what do you say to God at that moment? And who knows? But what this little girl helped her friend with was she just had this in her head already ready to go. And there's something beautiful, necessary, and convenient about these memorized prayers.
Sometimes, and I think we've all been in that circumstance, we're in an inconsolable state.
Yeah.
And you can't talk, can't think.
Can't think. That's when you can't think, you pray.
Yeah.
And when you can't pray, you just tell a joke.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Yeah, and you know, you're saying first thing we ought to do is pray. I don't know if you all had it in Catholic school, but Sister would always put JMJ right at the top of the page.
Oh, yeah.
So you start out, right? Can't think of what to do. You don't remember.
We write LTD, Laus Tibi Domine, at the top of our.
And what does
Praise
that
to you, Lord.
there
It's
you go.
a Benedictine motto.
All right. I'm going to write it down so I don't forget.
LTD.
LTD. Yeah.
The Jesuits write AMDG. We write LTD, and I guess everybody else does JMJ. Or
Now I have a couple. Now I have a
you can
couple.
write whatever you like.
That's right. So, Stephen, I know you have read this book, and when we were talking about it earlier, you said it's.
Did he write a review on Amazon is the big question.
Was it?
Not yet. I wanted to talk to you about it.
You said it was.
We could do it though.
But you said it was succinct, I think is the word you
Well,
used.
you know, you can't put the Desert Fathers into a box. It's really difficult.
Yeah.
And when someone goes really deep with our faith, you know, you have to pause. It's Christian shock therapy.
Ooh.
That's what the Desert Fathers are. They
Yeah, they
constantly
are.
shock you from that.
Yeah.
From that sort of easy going. Well, I went to church on Sunday. Give me a break.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a Christian.
Well, their biggest fear was tepidness. What they call acedia. Well, you know, acedia.
acedia.
Was,
Oh, gosh.
Their
What a
great
word.
fear was that they were going to end up mediocre.
Sloth? City?
Yeah, it's a kind of a sloth. It's more like a sort of. They called it the noonday devil. It's this sort of sense like, well, I didn't, you know, I actually, and I have people come to me in confession and say, well, I didn't murder anybody. And I'm like, well, that's good, you know, but the sense that the sort of thing to say, look, I'm a pretty good person. God will be basically grateful for my friendship. I think I'll take a break. I think I'll take a nap instead, you know, and. Whereas it's a fight, you know, it's a battle, and these Desert Fathers, they really understood it as a spiritual warfare with actual demons. And if you're just relaxing, you're going to get overrun. You know, they were constantly. These guys are the special forces of the prayer world. You know, they weren't content just to kind of kick back and let the artillery take care of it.
Yes, and the noonday devil mention is in Psalm 91, where this is the protection psalm, you know, with his pinions around us. And how are the pinions of God surrounding you?
What's opinion?
I was
The
gonna
pinions of an eagle, you know, surrounding you is but constant prayer. So
I have very strong opinions. Sorry.
That's good. So the noonday devil, which comes out in noon. So like, you did a great work in the morning, and then all of a sudden you're at
say,
the
"Well, I
water cooler, and
basically
everything
did
just
it,
starts to fall apart, and you didn't get much done in the afternoon. And every day you don't get much done in the afternoon,
Yeah.
and so you got to press through that, and that's that attack that comes.
For me, I think it's the mid-morning devil. Like, I have trouble just getting moving. Like, I wake up, do my morning prayers, and then I could grade my papers right before class, or I could take a nap. And then my class, and I could just grade the papers during class while the kids watch a movie, right? That's acedia. That's why I never watch movies
How
in my
about you
class.
graded 3 papers, and this brilliant thought came in to you, and now you're starting to get distracted. But what you should do is finish grading the papers.
Yeah, that's really good too. You're right. What is that? Yeah.
That happens to me all the time. I got to grade papers a day.
In the Rule of St. Benedict, when he talks about Lent, he says that a monk should choose one book to read and finish it. And I love that he says you should finish it because, I start more books before 8 a.m. than most people do all day, all their life. Like, I have so many unfinished books on my nightstand. It's like it could be. It is its own nightstand, really, at this point.
My wife has told me if I read a book, it's got to leave the house because it's becoming a pile. So now,
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, but you were saying something about the logic, the order of the book, or the logic imposed on it, or something. Or
Yeah, I mean, so first of all, I was going, what's he going to, before I even saw the book, it's like, how's he going to pull apart the Desert Fathers? Because what you did with humility was like just beautiful. It was
thanks.
It was just so graceful. And what you did here is you took this set of writings that are all over the map, and you actually put it into a pragmatic style of life, and that's what I love about the book.
Well, you're gonna love my next book because I didn't organize it at all. I there are all these stories in the Desert Fathers that I've never read before, that I never even heard about before. They're just brilliant, hilarious stories, and so I just wrote a whole collection of their sayings. And I didn't know what to do with them. And then I ran into this nun.
Go ahead. You finish it, and then I'm on. Go ahead.
I ran into this nun named Sister Jane Dominic, who just wrote an article on the healing power of stories. I said, would you like to co-author a book? In other words, like write the book for me while I just play around with the Desert Fathers? And she was like, yeah. So we're working on trying to use these stories as ways of healing. And so she's going to impose a sort of organizational structure on it that way, I hope.
Well, Jesus was really good at stories, too. This is St. Joseph Radio Presents, coming to you live from St. Louis, Missouri. I'm your host, Peter Karutz. We're here with Father Augustine Wetta and Stephen McCane.
Who has a thought?
This is an interesting thought.
Okay. I love interesting thoughts.
You notice how the play Hamilton so inspired young people.
Yeah.
And it taught also early American history of the Revolution. I mean, after a while, you could talk about Hamilton creating the first national bank and stuff with someone who's 17 or something, because that presentation inside it and all that singing and what have you, they're loving the songs, but that history was presented to them. Oh. So I would like for a bunch of monks and perhaps myself, and I know some script writers in Hollywood, a very prominent one, to start with Anthony, start a story. And this particular one, Scott Frank, who did Queen's Gambit, which is about that young lady chess player.
I love that show. My parents, I watched it while I was sick with COVID, I think.
So he always says you got to shock the person every single time something starts. You shock them.
Right. Every line should be a surprise.
And then you flow the story, and then you end the story with a problem. Okay?
End it with a problem.
Which gets solved in the next episode.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think it would be a fantastic script to start off with St. Anthony being beaten up by demons, but you don't tell anybody it's demons that are doing it.
Yeah, you just hear him getting beat up.
Just beat up, and then his buddy that night said, "Don't go back." He goes back, and they're trying to heal him and stuff, but he goes back the next night. And
that's really good.
And then flow into the desert with Anthony, but then it's like episodes of Desert Fathers, people coming in and stuff, and each episode, and you pick the worst. So it's the Evergentinos. Is that what you're working on? The Evergentinos is that that set of incredible stories.
It's huge,
and it's always counterintuitive.
Yeah,
it's always.
How do you pronounce it?
Evergentinos. Of course, this is just a layman trying to do it. I don't have the official way.
In my head, I've been saying Evergetinos, which can't be right. So.
So we could put this script together.
All right, I'm in.
Okay, and I think it'd be kind of cool because you could
of course
you could hook each one, and then just like Hamilton, you teach the Desert Fathers. And have you noticed anything religious? How powerful the box office is.
Lately,
Sound of Freedom.
Oh, yeah.
150
million, I hear.
Really?
Yeah.
And it was completely ignored by the secular media.
But people just,
And this movie, speaking of demons, what's the movie? Nefarious.
Nefarious.
Was brilliant. I've watched it twice.
I haven't seen it.
It's a horror movie. Well, it's more of a psychological thriller this psychologist decides to interview a criminal who claims he's possessed and tries to figure out whether he's sane or not. And it is, but it's really, really pro-life. I mean, the demon says to him, among other things, you're going to murder 3 people before you leave this conversation. And he's already his wife's having an abortion, his girlfriend's having an abortion. And so of course, the whole thing was totally ignored by critics, by the secular media.
I saw the ratings on it. It was awful. I mean, the people who did the reviews, panned it.
I'm sure they did. But I thought it was, I mean, and my dad, I've watched a lot of movies because my dad writes books about movies for a living. And I thought it was brilliantly written, amazingly acted, shot, everything. It was just fantastic. You've seen it?
Yes, and you're thinking that some scene's going to come that you can't unsee type thing.
Yeah, no.
And yet there isn't any of them. I mean, it's just on the edge.
Yeah, and the guy, they must have done a lot of research because theologically, and it just has some great lines. At one point he says something like, the psychologist says, "You think you're smarter than me?" He goes, "Oh, I am. I am so much smarter." He has this. Well, I don't know. I can't reproduce it because it was so well done. But I recommend to all your listeners to go watch Nefarious.
We should do it.
And it's like there's no bad words, no sex, not even really any violence.
Right.
But it's really a thinking movie, really great.
And you mentioned Sound of Freedom. Jim Caviezel spoke 2 nights ago over at the Missouri Right for Life. And
Really?
he was incredibly powerful.
gosh.
But one thing I remember from the movie, and it's a great teaching for Catholic theology, I guess, and that is you can never do an evil even to affect a good.
Right.
I'm going to say that again. You
Yeah,
can
yeah.
never do an evil even to
Yeah.
affect a good. And there's a number of scenes in the movie where in the call it the real world or the personal
Yeah.
circumstance, he was about to catch all of these people who were trafficking children. There was hundreds of kids on this island. The police were hours away, and the ringleader was they met each other going in and out of the jungle, and the ringleader was bringing a boy with him for those purposes. And he says, no. You know, Caviezel says, no, that boy's mine. That boy's mine. And he takes the ringleader takes out a gun, puts it to Caviezel's head, and says, "You step aside, or you get a bullet." And you know, all is going through your mind. Do you sacrifice the one child to save all?
Yeah.
And you look in Caviezel's eyes, and he never blinks. You see the terror, but he's
I
not.
wanna see this film
he's
so
not
bad.
going to move, and he doesn't move.
How
And
do you see this film? Is it online?
still
Is it
at
in
the movies.
theaters?
Oh, God.
Oh, it's in the
Yeah,
theaters.
it was supposed to be out for a weekend, and it's still there.
Okay, yeah.
Uh-huh.
So
'Cause-
anyway,
cool.
that is the Catholic teaching. You can never do an evil, even to affect a good.
I tell the kid in this sexual ethics class I teach, we have to, well, every year I move it back a chapter because at first I was just like, okay, let's talk about sexual ethics. But now I have to talk about like, what is truth? Can anything be true? Can you know what's true? Is your opinion true? But eventually we get to the point where I say, look, there are basically 3 moral laws. One is obvious. You can't do evil. Second is less obvious. You can't do evil that good may come of it. Right? And then they say, well, wait a second. What if somebody gave you a baby, you say, kill this baby or I blow up New York? I say, you can't do it. For one
Can't do
thing,
it. You're not blowing up New York. It's somebody else.
Well, for one thing, yeah. And besides that, in reality, that situation never happens. But and as soon as you allow someone to do evil so that good will come of it, as soon as you allow for that, then you can justify anything, and absolutely anything. And then the third one is you can't encourage someone else to do evil. And that's where the whole gay marriage thing comes into play, right? Because you can't, we really, as Catholics, we cannot attend those marriages,
Yeah.
those supposed marriages.
Yeah.
Because you're encouraging someone to hurt themselves. You
That's
can't
right.
do it.
That's right. I'm listening to Catechism in a Year, and today's
No matter
is
what
actually
Martin
on that.
S.J. says.
So we are flat out of time. Go to Incarnate Word or to Holy Infant. Drop off some new pairs of socks for the homeless. We need it desperately. Father, you got to come back because we didn't hit the book very much.
Yeah, we
Stephen,
didn't actually get around to talking about the book.
do it. And whatever you do, go out and spread the word and invite somebody to come to Mass this week.
That's
they
right.
need to. They want to. And you can make the difference.
They just don't know they want to.
You've been listening to St. Joseph Radio Presents from the Rome of the West, St. Louis, Missouri. If you would like to join us in our evangelization efforts, you can order a copy of today's broadcast or any of our past programs by visiting us on our website, stjosephradio.net. That's SAINT, josephradio.net. Or call us 636-447-6000. It's all at your fingertips to help us evangelize the world, bringing the good news of Christ to everyone you meet and change one soul at a time. Thank you for your prayers and support. Until next time, may God bless you and your family. This has been a presentation of St. Joseph Radio Presents.